Amateur Traveler is in its 20th year now, but can you imagine if I had people on the show who had never been to the destination but had just read about it or seen a movie about it? That wouldn't make any sense at all, and you wouldn't listen. We all know how important it is to receive advice from people who know a destination to get the most authentic local experience. And a great option for experiencing this is Explore Worldwide and their authentic small group adventures, led by local tour leaders, perfect for solo travelers who want to meet like minded people with a desire for adventure. I'm often an independent traveler, but two of my last three trips were with small group tours because they organize everything and it's a lot easier. If you want to recreate the tour I did to Malta, they have a Malta and Gozo Discovery Tour. I'm intrigued by one of their tours called A Taste of Sicily. The company again is Explore Worldwide, and visit exploreworldwide.com to learn more. And thanks to Explore Worldwide for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler. The nights are long, the days are short, and the weather is chilly to downright cold, depending on where you are. It's a good time to slip into a Quince iconic Mongolian cashmere sweaters, which start at only $50. You can treat yourself to everyday luxury at an affordable price with Quince. If you really want to dive into luxury, you can check out their leather handbags, washable silk shirts, and European linen sheet sets. Whatever you're looking for at Quince, all the prices are 50 to 80% less than similar brands, and they do that by partnering directly with top factories and cutting out the middleman. They only work with factories that use safe, ethical, and responsible manufacturing processes. And of course, they use premium fabrics and finishes for that luxury feel in every piece. But you've already heard me rave about my Quince travel pants. Treat yourself this winter without the luxury price tag. Go to quince.com/traveler for 365-day returns plus free shipping on your order. That's QUINCE.com/traveler to get free shipping and 365-day returns. Quince.com/traveler. And thanks to Quince for sponsoring this episode of Amateur Traveler.
Got my bags packed, I'm on a roll. I'm heading out there and I'm ready to go. I'm looking real good in my passport photo. Oh, no.
Amateur Traveler, episode 740. Today, the Amateur Traveler talks about palaces and puri, sultans and statues, temples and auto rickshaws as we go to the Indian city of Mysore.
I know that I should be heading home, but maybe not today.
Welcome to the Amateur Traveler. I'm your host, Chris Christensen. Let's talk about Mysore, India. I would like to welcome to the show Rahul Iyer from Arizona, but who's come to talk to us about Mysore, India. Rahul, welcome to the show.
Good afternoon, Chris. How are you?
I'm good. So before we start talking about what people should do there, could you put this on a map for us?
Mysore is in the south central part of India, in the foothills of the Deccan Plateau. It's about 144 kilometers south of Bangalore. It is right there in the center. It's not on any coast. In fact, it's on the highlands. You have the eastern and the western Ghats, as they call their highlands, which are just likewise on either side of the area. But it's in the highlands. To give you an idea of the kind of elevation you're at about 5,000 odd feet above sea level.
Oh, I didn't realize it was that high up. Okay. Interesting. Excellent. And before we say why should you go there, what's your connection with Mysore?
Well, I have been to Mysore several times over my life. My mother is originally from Mysore and grew up there. I actually have a lot of family, relatives, and friends there in Mysore.
Excellent. And why should someone go to Mysore, India?
It is a very unique and royal city. It's an old royal city. There are tons of palaces in the city. I happen to be an archaeological buff and art buff, and that is something about history that I like, and that's what Mysore provides. That coupled with the fact that Mysore is in a climate that is a lot more tolerable compared to the rest of India due to its elevation, and also that it's a lot less, in my view, stressful than the rest of India. Yes, there are a lot of people on the streets, but it doesn't seem to be as hurried as the rest of India. is why I like Mysore. And you got two royal families that claimed control of Mysore at different times in its history. You have the Maharaja of Mysore, the Wodeyar dynasty, and then you got the Tipu Sultan, who basically they fought with each other over times for what was Mysore. You got a very deep culture and history of this city and location.
Excellent. And what kind of itinerary do you recommend?
Well, I'm going to talk about a 5-day type itinerary. I have some of my biases, and you'll see that.
We all do. That's okay.
I'm going to call day 0 as your arrival. I'm going to put you in the afternoon. You're going to probably come out to Mysore by a train.
Okay.
The nearest airport is Bangalore, which is about 144 kilometers to the north. But if you come to Mysore, you'll either be coming by a private car, or you're coming by a train, or by the bus. The trains and buses generally run every hour, and it's about a 2-hour odd trip out of Bangalore coming up to Mysore. And I like trains, so I tend to go by train. So if you can try to arrive in Mysore in the afternoon, you'll have a chance, which is almost right there. There's a wonderful railway museum within earshot of the train station. I think it's the second largest one they have there in Mysore. Probably the next thing you'll probably do after you wander around is go to your hotel. I mean, you can get a rickshaw. I don't know if you're familiar with that term. Are you?
Sure. Mm-hmm.
Rickshaw is basically a 3-wheel auto rickshaw. You can see them everywhere. You can get that. Or you can get a bus. Those are mainly the two ways probably you want to if you got your luggage going there. Obviously, there are some nice hotels in the city. There are also some very simple hostels. You name it, you can get it. One particular one, which is a very nice hotel, is the Lalita Mahal Hotel, which is a little further out. I would recommend you get either a rickshaw or a taxi from the queue in the train station to go out there, because it's a little bit out of the main city. Why is this unique? This dates back to the 1920s, if not earlier. This was built by the Maharaja of Mysore. It's kind of a retreat for the British viceroy when this area was a British colony. And it's now been a wonderful hotel. It's still there. You go in there and you can see how they blend the British influence and the Indian influences into the architecture and how the hotel is.
Well, and you said there were luxury and there was hostels. This is the former, not the latter.
This is a very much a 5-star fancy
yep.
hotel.
Excellent.
One thing you do got to do if you got a chance and if you get there early enough that first day is around 7 o'clock p.m., there is this Mysore Palace in the main city.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, everybody knows where it is. If you go ask your bellboy where the Mysore Palace is, if you go ask any taxi driver, take me to the Mysore Palace, or you go ask the bus driver, take me to the Mysore Palace, he'll know exactly what you're talking about. And this is pretty much, if you get there by 7 o'clock, you'll see everybody standing around like, why are they doing this? Well, right about 7 o'clock, they're going to have the whole thing light up like a Christmas tree.
Yeah.
And I mean, you're going to see the whole thing totally light up. And you're going to be like, who? Yes, that's about what it is. If you have time about 7 o'clock, if you can figure out how you can handle the crowds, then you may be tired, you may not be. If you're not, you can go look at the actual palace. You do have to pay admission fee. The one thing about India, as a foreigner, you got to pay the foreign entry fee, which is about 10 times the cost of a local.
It doesn't mean it's expensive, but it just means it's 10 times the cost of the local. Yeah. We found,
Yes.
though, when I was in New Delhi, it was really funny because I'm waiting in the queue with the locals to pay the entrance fee, and they started waving me forward because I was a tourist, and they knew that I was going to be paying more money. So I got something for that 10 times difference in price.
Yes, but anyway, the long and the short, whenever I go, because I am obviously of Asian Indian background, I go in there, they don't really necessarily wave me forward. In fact, it was kind of ironic when I've had people while I stand in that queue, and it can get long.
Sure.
They try to approach me and they speak the local language, which is Kannada, which I speak not a word of. And I go look at them and I'm like, I don't know what you're saying. But that is something that you just got to learn to manage it. That's about it.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, it's a big palace. So if I can get it, if you don't want to see it in the evening, you can wander around. They got some wonderful different places. You can probably want to get some dinner. Which, of course, there are some different things there. On the main road, you got tons of places that will serve you the traditional South Indian style food, which That is in itself very different from the north or from Delhi,
Right.
where you were talking about. South Indian style food, I'm going to say if you love meat curries, you're in the wrong place.
Okay.
This is very much vegetarian
Hmm.
fare. I mean, you're going to have typical things in different places. Like one of the most things there's just the main thing that everybody likes is dosai or masala dosai, which is basically rice, lentil, flour crepes, and they usually stuff it with curry, potatoes, and onions. That's a very big thing. They come in varying sizes depending upon what you order. You can have one just for you, which is still a good size, or you can have one that literally is across the whole table, enough for 4 to 5 people at once. I've seen that happen. But that is what it is. They got some wonderful things there. Another thing they may have if you want dinner is they call it idli and sambar. They put them together. Idli is a steamed rice cake. It's a little bit chewy. And sambar is basically stewed vegetables and lentils and spices. They kind of go well together. That's something else.
Hmm.
They have a few other things which you can try, which I'll hint at times if you want. But there's some things like another one is a puri and sabji, which is again dry potato curry. The puri is basically like a tortilla, but it's different. It's made from whole wheat, and they deep fry it like a big puff. It's like it's fried to a puff. But those are the kinds of things that you may want for that dinner that first night.
Okay.
So that's day 0. Now, day 1. As I said, Mysore is home to the Maharaja of Mysore, or the Wodeyar dynasty. They ruled that part of India until it became part of modern India. India, as a modern country, only became that way in 1947.
Right.
So this is before then. First thing you want to do in the morning, if you can get out there early enough, I'd say no later than 8 o'clock, is get to Mysore Palace. Why 8 o'clock? Well, people stand in queue, and the queue can get long. And I don't think you want to spend 2 to 3 hours in a queue. That's why you try to get there as early as you can. And you can go there, you pay your admission, you go inside. What it has is there's one room, the Diwan-e-Khas, as they call it. This is really where the Maharaja would have his audience with the people.
Got it.
They have the Diwan-e-Khas, the Diwan-e-Am. Those are the two things. Basically, they're equivalent of today of what you would call as the 2 chambers of our Congress here in the United States, effectively, where you would have different nobles come forward.
So it's the audience room, really, for the...
It's the audience room. Mm-hmm. It's the audience where you would have different nobles or people coming to hold court with the Maharaja. They have some other things. I mean, it's a very unique architecture of that palace. You can go look around. You will see his numerous carriages beautifully restored in one of the rooms of the palace, in the garage, as they call it. I don't know what else they would call it. If you look around on the walls, you'll see some very interesting murals that depict the people, the servants, and the Maharaja and how all of things were at that time. I mean, you'll see the Maharaja carried on his chariot with all of his, they call them servants, but they're listed as darbaris is one, if you're a male servant, or different things with their costumes and coming through processions in the main city. Mysore, if you go around one of the festival times like Dasara, it is known for its huge processions for the main drag. Even today, to a point, they do that. But it's going to take you a few hours to go through the whole palace and the grounds of it. I mean, they got some beautiful gardens around there where they are modeled after the British style. A lot of English influence, again, from the colonial time.
Right. Well, you were mentioning that they ruled for a long time. They ruled from 1399 is what I'm reading, but this palace only dates back to the just almost the 1900, just a few years before that. They started construction and completed in 1912. So it is consistent with the British were already heavily entrenched in India by that time.
Yes, that is true. The family's been around a long time. Mm-hmm. That this palace, the Mysore Palace itself, is only dated to like the early 1900s.
Right.
But really, that's really where it is. You'll probably be out by late morning after completing.
Well, and then you mentioned coming on the festival of Dasara, and I know nothing about that. I Googled it very quickly, but would we want it to come during that festival? It's a Hindu festival.
Oh, yeah, it's a Hindu festival, but Mysore, there's every religion you could think of there. They're very inclusive. There's not a lot of intolerance. It's a very cosmopolitan place. If you come then, there's a whole lot of local color in the streets. People are gathered. You'll see these huge processions. Dasara is a Hindu procession and festival, and a lot of the primary Hindu gods are Ganesha, which is the one with the wonderful elephant nose. He's the
Hmm.
god of wisdom, but that is one thing, and you'll see lots of different floats, as they call it, or
Hmm.
altars, which they're carrying and walking to the streets with them.
Got it. Well, and I see it's a 10-day festival, but I'm not sure when it is.
It's a harvest festival,
Oh,
so it'd
okay,
be
got
right
it.
at the
All right.
tail end of the harvest time, which you're talking about. Primarily fall is where you would be looking at, or equivalent of fall.
Got it.
But that's really what Mysore is about. You got many other palaces. I mean, I mentioned one in the first day, in day one in the morning. You could even go to Jagan Mohan Palace, which is another palace in the same city. It's closer to downtown, but it's now basically an art museum. It's still part of the same family that ruled Mysore,
Okay.
but it's another one of these palaces. As I said, Mysore is a city of palaces, and you got some beautiful art carvings of different kinds of wood, or it's politically incorrect, but they do have ivory carvings there.
Sure.
But that's what it is. You got stone carvings and things like that, but they got some beautiful old carvings. A lot of them, they tend to depict things like the famous battles of the Mahabharata or the Ramayana. Those are two very mythical or mythological stories
Right.
from Hindu literature. They talk about these huge battles against kings and how religion played into it, mainly Hindu religion. I mean, if you can think of the Iliad or the Odyssey or things like that from Greece, or the Aeneid from Rome,
Hmm.
this is kind of the equivalent kind
Right.
of thing.
Good analogy. Excellent. Where to next?
Well, basically, the next thing, you probably are hungry by then, is probably lunchtime. So you could probably get one of the, as we discussed earlier, some simple South Indian foods.
And you mentioned the food. Do you have a particular place or two that you might recommend?
One notable one is Vinayaka Malari, Vinayaka. That's the first word. The next word is Malari. And it's one of the bigger places there. They are known for their masala dosai, as we talked about earlier,
Got
a
it.
rice lentil crepe. Maybe by that point you want to go say, okay, I want to go see some more things that maybe are less historical, but still they're historical, but just a little bit newer. That'll be a better way to say it. Why not go find one of the Trin bike shares that are all up and down in Mysore? Trin is the company. They're kind of like a Uber bike, if you want to
Okay.
call it,
Got
here
it.
in the States or something like that. You can go get the app, you can go rent a bike and ride the bicycle around the city. One of the things you could see is they have it the Cheva Luvamba Mansion. You can only probably see it from the outside. It is a government office. It is part of they got a bio laboratory in there and some agricultural department stuff there. I mean, it's an old mansion. It's again a palace that they repurposed, if you want to call it that, to a government unit.
Right.
Nearby to that is also something they call as the Yuva Raja Palace, Yuvaraja Palace. It's not really used as a palace today, and you may or may not be able to see much in the inside, but they do have some wonderful environs on the outside and the gardens and related. It is actually one of the buildings of the University of Mysore. Mysore is a big university town, and they actually use this building for university teaching and or administration.
Oh, got it. Okay.
Up until now, we've been talking a lot about Hindu stuff for religion. There's actually some other things worth looking at. There is a very famous church in Mysore that's Catholic, Saint Philomena Catholic Church. And it's right in the main part of Mysore. And okay, you don't have to be Catholic to go in there, but you can go in there and just marvel at how beautiful the architecture is of that building. I mean, it rivals what you would see in Europe.
Yeah, I'm reading that it was inspired by the Köln Cathedral in Köln, or Cologne, depending on which pronunciation you prefer.
Yes, that's a wonderful thing. And probably by this time it's starting to maybe come close to evening, maybe sundown. You could either go by the bus, from the main bus stand up to Chamundi Hills. That's a wonderful place just overlooking Mysore. I'll explain what I mean, what it means up there. You
Okay.
can either go by bus or taxi, or you can even, if you want to, take the rickshaw and go to the steps of the 1,000-odd steps if you want to. If you are more athletically fit, you could even take the bicycle and take the road up. But Chamundi Hills is just outside of Mysore. It is where they have a wonderful Hindu temple that overlooks a city. Beautiful overlook. Again, it's an active temple. But if you go look at it, and if you happen to be there right about, I'm going to say right at nightfall, let's say it's 6:45, 7 o'clock, you'll get a perfect view of the whole city of Mysore all around. And you'll get even a perfect view of the Mysore Palace. And if it just so happens to be 7 o'clock in the evening, which, again, as I said, they light up the palace, you can see it from there. And you'll be like, wow, when you see that. And I mean, as I say, try to stay by nightfall. Of course, you're dependent on the mass transit. Maybe the buses sometimes don't want to stay up there that long. But if you're ready to pay for a rickshaw to take you back into town, they got plenty of them hanging around ready to take you back in.
Well, and you say pay for a rickshaw. As I recall, we're not talking a lot of money to pay for a rickshaw.
You're talking maybe at minimum. There's a minimum fare that they charge of 7 rupee, which I looked it up. It's like 2 cents US. Obviously, you're going to pay by the kilometer as you go back down.
Right.
Or anywhere with a rickshaw. And they do have fare meters on them. You got to negotiate with the driver before you sit in them.
Oh, yeah.
Get them to use the fare meter. And of course, and they should give you the fare card. Exactly. They should be carrying it. They're legal. If they're not, then don't even touch them.
And there's probably another one right behind them. So,
yeah. Some of them will claim their fare meter is broken.
Oh, yeah.
I'll let you figure out what that means if you want to go play that game. I did want to mention something. If you decided to go use the steps, right around step 700, you're going to see at the Chamundi Hill or Chamundeshwari Temple, right in that complex, there is a huge granite block there that is carved into a bull or the god Nandi, Nandi. It's about the 700 step level. As I said, there are about 1,000 steps going up that hill.
Okay.
But that's something worth seeing. I will say every place that's religious in Mysore, they're open to foreigners. They have absolutely no problem with you. They just ask you to show a little respect with the way you dress and how you behave around them.
Okay.
Ah, bon chien. Bonjour, je suis Theo, a tour leader with Explore. And this is Punti. He's helping us find truffles under the trees next to this beautiful vineyard. Maybe for tomorrow's cooking class? We call it semi-heure. Parfait. 7 o'clock. Not everyone gets to enjoy a Bordeaux sunset this way, but you will if you explore. No, Punti. Search exploreworldwide.com and don't just travel. Explore.
And what are we doing the next day?
Day 2, you're going to get into either care of your hotel or care of some of the different, you can get a day tour.
Okay.
One of them happens to be a government unit, Karnataka State Tourist Development Company. That's a government unit that can do it. They usually start a tour of some of the outer-lying temples. They're in towns like Belur, Belur, or Halebid, Halebid, or Shravana Belagola. These are some old temples. One of them dates back to before Christ, if you want to know how old some of these temples are.
Okay.
And they start these tours at 8 o'clock in the morning. They really would like you to get out and do that. I mean, because you're going to be going a good enough distance around in a circle on the northern part of the city or just beyond the city environs. Likewise, unless you're with a tour that's already prearranged, see if you can get a packed lunch because you're going to have a hard time finding anything as a Westerner that you can stomach as far as food.
Because it's all going to be very spicy, or what are you expecting that it's going to be difficult?
They have places, but they tend to the local people, and sometimes you may be appalled at the sanitary conditions.
Got it. Okay.
Which is typical of India. I mean, you got to be very careful what you eat because, I mean, this is a segue. I'll stop for a second and say, you'll find many street vendors everywhere in India.
Mm-hmm.
My advice to you, if you're a foreigner, eat at your own risk. Just be prepared because I would not do it myself.
Okay.
But the first place that they would probably stop at is a place called Shravana Belagola, which is a place, it's a set of hills. It's a religious site just north of the main city of Mysore. There's a religion in India, a minor religion called Jain, Jain. Mm-hmm. This is a pilgrimage center to the Jain religion. And what is there is they have a huge statue on the top of the hill. You got to go about 500 odd steps to get there to see that statue. There's a statue of they call it as Gomateshwara statue. And this is a place where if you can go up there, you'll see pilgrims along with you being a tourist. And as I said, with proper etiquette, they'll let you go and no problem there. So dress conservatively, meaning don't wear short shorts or don't wear anything too provocative when you go up there.
Okay.
And of course, you want to have good shoes, but they'll make you take the shoes off to go up the steps. This is a wonderful place to see if you want to see that wonderful statue. One of the emperors, we talked a little bit about the Maharaja of Mysore,
Right.
but India has had many empires and emperors crisscross that place. One of the famous emperors and empires you hear about is the Maurya Empire from further north in India. Well, one of the famous emperors of that time was Chandragupta Maurya, and about 321 BCE or BC, he renounced the throne to become a simple ascetic monk type person, to just go for religion. He showed up here in about 321 BC, and this is a place that he would call home. He made pilgrimage to. But this is one place that it's like, wow, when you get to the top of it. You got the temple on one side, and you can see a whole area out of where Mysore is, and you go start looking north, and you kind of can start seeing where Bangalore is and a few other things coming that way. That's what you'll see a little bit on a clear day. There are a few more things that they have on the tour. They have Halibid, which is about 20 minutes further away, which is why you would go on either with a car or a bus, a tour bus. It's another one of these Hindu temples. It dates back to the 12th century. And it's a Hindu temple. Interestingly enough, it's still an active temple. But if you are really into architecture, look at this temple. There's some beautiful architectural ruins there, which how they do the motifs on the sides of the walls and how they look at the architecture from the front of it and what some of the different types of ways they depict the Hindu gods. There are numerous different ones there, Vishnu being the biggest one they'll see in that area. You can also, with reason, go inside if there is space for you to go look inside the temple. Again, you make sure you're dressed modestly, but they will be more than happy to show you the inside of it. It's actually an active temple, so if they are doing their prayers, show some respect and let them do their prayers. Again, of course, there is yet another temple nearby in the place called Belur, which is very similar, which will be part of the tour usually. The only difference here is it probably is in better condition when it comes to the restoration, because they're constantly restoring, and you'll see there'll be lots of workers trying to fix the masonry, fix the stones. It's interesting how they put the stones together without the use of mortar, just to get the temples to stay. But that is what it is, but they do deteriorate. And by this time, you're probably hungry, so if you want to get some lunch, and again, that's why if you're with the tour group, they'll take you to a place which they have set up for lunch. But if you're going by yourself with a driver, that's when you want your packed lunch.
Okay, got it.
With all of this, you'll probably end up back in Mysore city itself, somewhere about 4 o'clock, 5 o'clock in the afternoon, just to give you how much you've been seeing, because you've been really going around all over the place there.
Okay.
Knowing you, if you missed the lighting at the palace, the Mysore Palace, you may be able to get back in time to see that at 7 p.m. That's like a ritual in Mysore. Almost every day, like clockwork, they have the lighting ritual at the palace.
Okay.
Day 3, really, you got mostly museums. You could go get a bike share or bicycle, and you can see around the different museums. In the main city itself, you have the Natural History Museum, which is a nice museum. Really, I don't know what you think about natural history. I like certain things there. They don't show dinosaurs, but they show some different things of how some of the animal fossils are and things like that. But remember, Mysore is not the capital city. The capital city is way north in Delhi. So it doesn't have that same stature, but it does have some nice things. There's also the Railway Museum, if you want to. I've noted that before.
Right.
And nothing is complete anywhere in India without seeing a market. You got to go to an open air market. If you want to see where they're selling, with all the noise and the chaos with them selling any kind of fruit and vegetable or any kind of thing, there's a market there in the main center. The Deva Raja market is what they have there. That's the market. It's the place of activity. There's no particular time of day to go to it, but because you'll always see it. But that is something worth going and seeing. Also, I will note one thing about this area. At the entrance of the market, they got something they call, and it depends on what generation you are, because remember, India is a former British territory. There are two different names, and it depends on what year, how old the person is. They've renamed some of the places as a result. That's what I'm trying to say. At the entrance to the Deva Raja Market is a traffic circle, but there's a tower right in the center, a clock tower. If you are of my parents' generation, you would call it the Dufferin Clock Tower, named after Lord Dufferin of Britain.
Okay.
If you are of my age or younger, you would call it the Chicka Gadiara, which means the small clock tower.
Okay.
There is another clock tower in the city called the Dodda Gadiara, which is the large clock tower in front of the main city hall. But this one is just at the entrance of the market. It has some interesting architecture. It actually is still working as a clock tower.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something it's a tourist site to see. They have restored it. There is also many beautiful lakes and gardens around the main city of Mysore. There is the Karanji Lake, which is right in that same central area. You got a butterfly sanctuary and aviary. I happen to like natural beauty. That's why I would go, and it's a great place to walk or ride a bike, get away from the noise of concrete and the cars. That's one thing. There's also botanical gardens there, which that is also one of the things that draws there. It has some very typical, unique plants of the area, which, remember, this is at a certain elevation.
Right.
You won't see it totally tropical, but you won't yet see it. It's not like in the U.S. It's a little bit of both you'll see.
Okay.
You'll see some pine trees and some similar deciduous, but you'll also see things like coconuts. That's one of the things that I just enjoy in India is you can go anywhere along the street. If you see a gentleman selling coconuts, he'll crack it open and you are more than happy to enjoy the juice and appropriate from that coconut. That's something that I like.
Very cool.
You can go and get trinkets and whatnot at the market. I'm going to tell you, they probably are going to rip you off. But there are tons of other state emporiums, as they call them, along the main drag in Mysore.
Okay.
To get wonderful wood carvings and different kinds of inlaid work, even silk. Mysore is a famous silk center.
Oh, okay. I did not know that.
One of the things you'll see traditional women wear in Mysore is a sari, which is a traditional dress. The Mysore saris are very famous, and you can go to a place like Kaveri is one of the government-run emporiums, and you can go there and, within reason, it's a fair price. I mean, it's enough price so the artisan can make a fair deal, but it's also one where you as a tourist won't get ripped off.
Okay.
There is one more thing that I am going to say here about Mysore, which is very unique, but I want to be careful how I say it. There are many people in the West who love yoga. I am not a partaker. I don't normally partake of yoga, but Mysore is a famous center for yoga. And there are many centers where you can go and practice yoga with the guru. I will say many of them are booked solid. You're talking about a 2 to 3 months wait list.
Oh, wow. Oh. Okay.
So if you can get an appointment, come prepared. They are wonderful places there to go partake of the yoga if you want to. And many of the hotels in the city will help you to have a package deal for that.
Okay. And would I book that when I book the hotel? Should I do it ahead of time?
Yeah, they probably be more than happy to help you. If you let them know that up front that you really would like to go have a session with the guru, probably, and you tell them that, they're probably more than happy to arrange that for you.
Okay. Good to know.
Some of the other things, if you want to talk about that's basically their day 3. Day 4, you're going to probably want to go see something just to the north of Mysore. It's called as the Krishna Rajasagar Dam. What they did, or rather what the Maharaja of Mysore did, is he built a dam across the Kaveri River to address drought issues. This area, until that time, was known for lots of drought, and this happened to be one of the ways they were able to preserve the water. You can go there in the evenings primarily, or anywhere, but they have some wonderful, they've turned that area into a bit of a water park of sorts with fountains and dancing fountains, and they got some beautiful waterfalls around there, which they require some hiking. So it's best to go with a guide to the forest to find those specific waterfalls like Belmuri Falls and Yedmuri Falls. Also, in the same area, just a little bit north, is a small town called Srirangapatnam. And what is famous here is, remember I alluded to the fact that up until now we were talking about the Maharaja of Mysore?
Right.
Well, this is the other royal family that is in Srirangapatnam that often quarreled with Mysore. This is where the Tipu Sultan resided.
Okay.
And he was a Muslim ruler, and he has this wonderful palace there. I would actually consider going out there to the first thing in the morning, maybe by train or by bus or by a hired car. Take your pick. They're all relatively affordable. And spend some time looking at his palace. You will find that his gardens around the palace are resembling that of a British-style garden, and his tomb and his family tombs are there also.
Okay. And I would have to say, as a student of history, probably I know Mysore most because of Tipu Sultan and his opposition to British rule in India. Just even in some of the historic fiction that I've read from the era, like the Richard Sharp series that talks about some of the battles that Wellington fought when he was in India, for instance, are around the person of Tipu Sultan.
Yes.
So you're talking late 1700s.
Yes, the Tipu Sultan, he was very much against the British rule. The Maharajas of Mysore, again, the way they handled the British was, okay, we do this for you, you stay out of our hair mentality.
Right.
They were a little bit less of trying to battle against the British. They were trying to find a way to let the British do what they got to do, but not get in their hair, if you want to call it that. They just tried to find ways to work around that. But again, yeah, they did fight. Both sides fought, and they fought the British, they fought each other. And really, that's your day 4.
Okay.
Day 5, I would probably call your catch-up day for anything else, because that's a whole lot of stuff.
Right. Okay.
And that's really what I'm going to say for your week in Mysore. I mean, Mysore, I did say a lot, but you could either make it as busy as you want, or you can make it as much of a relaxing area as you want. I actually happen to like Mysore because it's a lot less stressful, it's a lot less chaotic or busy, and it's definitely a lot less humid than elsewhere in India.
Interesting. Well, and one thing that surprised me when we came in, you said we were probably taking the train in because the nearest airport was, I think you said 120 miles away. We're not talking about a small town, though. We're talking about a city with over 1 million people.
Yeah, it's a pretty big-sized city.
Yeah.
I mean, I made it seem like it's small, but it's a pretty good-sized city in the southern part of Mysore district in Karnataka.
Right. It may be small by Indian standards or Chinese standards, but by U.S. standards, that's pretty good size.
It's actually, believe it or not, they say it's the second largest city in the province of Karnataka in India.
Mm-hmm.
I'll take it for what it's worth. Every year they come up with statistics and it changes.
Well, people have a way of doing that. They move around and such. As we go to wrap this up, Rahul, you are standing in the prettiest spot in Mysore. Where are you standing and what are you looking at?
It's right about evening, about maybe 6:45, 7 o'clock. I am at the top of Chamundi Hill.
Okay.
I'm waiting to see the lights turn on at the Mysore Palace, and I can see all of Mysore around me from the beautiful overlook. That is where I want to go. That is where I want to be at the prettiest spot.
Excellent. Now, your family is from there, but you grew up in Arizona. Where do you go in Mysore that you think, I am not in Arizona anymore?
Well, I've been to India so many times. India's been part of my culture for a long time. I was born and raised by the son of immigrants. The most foreign element of what I can think about in Mysore would really be maybe when I'm over in Srirangapatnam and looking at the Tipu Sultan's palace in that area, mainly because I haven't seen it as much. I've seen it some, but I haven't seen it nearly the level of elsewhere in India, in Mysore. Primarily, maybe it's because it's a little further out of the way. That's about the main thing.
Okay. And one thing that makes you laugh and say only in Mysore.
I was standing in queue at the Mysore Palace trying to get my ticket, and here comes this young, nice little girl coming to me and saying, "Uncle, can you get me ticket?" And I politely said, "Well, I don't think you want me to get the ticket because I'm a foreigner." And then she quickly said, "Oh," and walked away. She was obviously a local, and I get mistaken all the time for a local when I'm actually a foreigner. So they have a hard time. And this is a long queue, and somehow people in any part of India, but Mysore is why it sticks out, is they can't seem to figure out that they got to go stand in line like everybody else.
That is true in some countries more than others. But, okay, excellent. And if you had to summarize Mysore in just 3 words, what 3 words are you going to use?
beautiful royal city with lots of natural beauty.
That was certainly more than 3 words, but we'll take any 3 of those that you like. Our guest again has been Rahul Iyer. And Rahul, thank you so much for coming on Amateur Traveler and sharing with us your love for your heritage city of Mysore.
Yes, thank you very much for giving me the opportunity, and I wish anybody a wonderful time if they travel to Mysore.
In news of the community, first, thanks to our latest patron, and I don't know his or her name, FCJZ 2019, but they are an avid traveler from Canada and are now helping support the show. You can also by going to patreon.com/amateurtraveler. I heard from Sandra, who said, "Thank you for keeping the dream of travel alive for many of us who can't travel during this pandemic. There is still all of Canada available if I would want to travel. However, more and more cities are in lockdown, and we are presently under curfew in Montreal. Heavy sigh. The best bang for the buck for me is to wait until things improve. For now, I will have to travel via your wonderful podcasts. Wishing you and yours a safe, travel-filled, happy new year for 2021. Thanks so much, Sandra. And my wishes for you as well, and for all of us. I'm hoping not only that we get to travel again, but that things get better so that we can travel again, because there are so many other reasons that I want things to get better. I also heard from Carol, who wrote about an older episode about Saskatchewan. Carol was not such a fan of some of the things that were said in that. She was a little bit insulted that there wasn't more mention of First Nations people, especially my apologies for pronunciation here, Wanuskewin heritage part, which is minutes out of Saskatoon. Further, another activity to do in Saskatchewan almost any time in the summer is to attend a powwow. And Carol thinks we really missed something by leaving that out. And my apologies, Carol. With that, we're going to end this episode of Amateur Traveler. If you have any questions, send an email to host@amateurtraveler.com, or better yet, leave a comment on this episode at amateurtraveler.com. And thanks so much for listening.
I got to see one more cathedral. I got to sit in one more